Daniel was just 16 when he had the first dream. It began like a memory he never lived. He stood in a golden field, under a sky bruised with the lavender and orange hues of dusk. In the distance, a girl was laughing, free, radiant, and almost glowing. Her voice was music, and as he walked toward her, he felt warmth flood his chest, as though her presence lit something in him that had long been asleep. They didn't speak at first. They just stood close, looking at each other. Her eyes, a deep ocean blue, held his gaze like an anchor. Then she smiled, and suddenly they were sitting under a tree, laughing. She told him stories about stars that danced, dreams that whispered truths, and the way love could travel beyond lifetimes. Felt real. More than real. When he woke up, he couldn't forget her face, even though he'd never seen her before. Night after night she returned. Her name was never spoken, her story never told. But in every dream, Daniel felt he knew her. They played, they cried, they danced in places that didn't exist on Earth. Hilltops made of crystal, oceans that shimmered like fire, and forests that whispered songs of other worlds. He never questioned why she was there. He just waited every night to see her again. Years passed, and the dreams continued. First, Daniel thought it was just imagination, a growing mind creating fantasy. But as he got older and the dreams persisted with painful clarity, he began to wonder, who was she? Why her? Was she real, or just a beautiful figment of his lonely heart? By the time he was 25, Daniel had searched online forums for answers. Recurring dreams of a stranger. Seeing the same woman in dreams. Some said it was a spiritual twin. Others claimed it was wishful thinking. But no one had the answer. Still the dreams continued. She aged with him. She grew older in the dreams just as he did. Her voice became deeper, wiser. Their conversations turned from childlike wonder to profound reflections on life, pain, loss, and hope. He would wake up with tears in his eyes, feeling both joy and emptiness. It wasn't just a dream. It was a second life. Friends came and went. Lovers never stayed. Daniel could never explain it, but no woman in real life compared to the one who held his hand in dreams. Until he turned 35. And everything changed. At 35, Daniel felt a pull, an unexplainable urge to start over. His career in tech had plateaued, and his relationships were hollow echoes of what he longed for. So he packed his things, left his old apartment behind, and moved to a coastal town 3 states away. A place he'd never been before, but that felt oddly familiar. The town was quiet, peaceful. There were narrow streets lined with flowering trees, and small family-run cafes on every corner. Daniel rented a modest apartment above a bookstore. The scent of old pages and sea salt became his new reality. One overcast morning, still unpacking boxes and adjusting to the silence, Daniel wandered into a cafe called The Clover Nest. The chime of the door was soft, and the smell of cinnamon and coffee beans filled the air. He barely looked around before stepping to the counter, ordering his coffee with the distracted ease of someone lost in thought. But then he felt it. That warmth. That indescribable pull. He turned, and there she was. She stood by the window, her back to him, but something inside him knew. The way her silhouette curved, the delicate line of her neck, the way she tilted her head slightly as if listening to the world's quiet music. It was her. The woman from the dreams. He wanted to approach her. But what would he say? "Hey, I've been dreaming about you for 20 years. Sounded insane. And yet, standing still felt more unbearable than risking rejection. Her eyes widened, mirroring the same shock, the same impossible recognition. "You!" she whispered. His world shifted. The ground no longer felt solid. "You know me?" he asked, barely breathing. Tears welled in her eyes. "Since I was a child. Saw you. In my dreams." Their connection wasn't just one-sided. She had dreamt of him too. They sat together at a corner table, still shaken, sipping coffee that neither of them tasted. The woman's name was Alara, a name Daniel had never heard, yet now sounded like poetry. She spoke softly, choosing her words with care, as if saying them aloud would shatter the surreal moment. "I never told anyone," Ilara admitted, fingers trembling around her cup. "Not even my parents. Thought I was crazy. But the dreams, they never stopped." Daniel nodded slowly. "Me too. Since I was 13. You were always there." They began to compare memories. Their dreams mirrored each other, sometimes identically. "You ever think it meant something?" she asked, almost afraid of the answer. "I used to hope it did," he said. "Then I thought it was just loneliness creating a fantasy." Ilara smiled faintly. "It never felt fake." There was a pause. Then she reached out, hesitantly, and took his hand. And in that moment, it felt like the universe exhaled. Their hands fit perfectly. Their pulses matched. And neither wanted to let go. The next few days passed in a haze. Daniel and Ilara met every morning at the clover nest, unable to stay away. They spoke for hours, recalling details of their shared dreams. Each revelation sent shivers down their spines. Curious and hungry for answers, they dove into research. Spiritual theories, ancient philosophies, soulmates, parallel lives, dream dimensions. The deeper they went, the more it seemed like their connection transcended logic. One evening, in the quiet of Ilara's apartment, she showed him a journal she had kept since childhood, filled with sketches and notes about the dreams. Daniel was stunned. One drawing depicted the exact field where he'd first seen her, down to the position of the tree and the shades of the sky. "This is real," he whispered. Lara nodded. "It always has been." That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. Not because of the dream, there wasn't one for the first time in years, but because of the weight of truth finally settling in. Had always been real. But now it had entered reality. The next morning, they visited the town's archives, searching for any historic explanation. What they found was startling. A local legend spoke of two lovers who were separated by war centuries ago, each promising to find the other in every life. The story, eerily similar to theirs, was carved in an old monument at the edge of town. The woman's name, Lara. The man's, Tunnel. They stared at the stone inscription, chills crawling up their spines. It wasn't coincidence. It was a cycle. A love too powerful to be bound by time. Ilara reached out, fingertips brushing over the engraved names like one might touch a long-lost lover's face. "Daniel and Ilara," she said softly. "Not just similar. The same." Daniel felt goosebumps rise along his arms. And they were lovers. Separated by war. "A vow to find each other in every life," she whispered. "It's us." Back at the cottage Daniel had rented, they sat on the porch in silence, wrapped in blankets, sipping tea as the sun dipped behind the hills. The sky was painted in fiery orange and deep lavender, and for a moment the world felt still. "You know what's strange?" Ilara finally said, breaking the quiet. "I never told anyone about my dreams. I thought I was crazy." Daniel turned to her. "I never told anyone either. I thought maybe it was a subconscious creation. A romantic illusion. But we dreamed of the same places," she said, her voice trembling. "The red field, the glass lake, the fire in the sky. That wasn't coincidence. It's been happening to me since I was a teenager," Daniel said. "The first time I saw your face, it felt like something was missing had finally returned." Ilara smiled sadly. "Me too." They both looked out into the distance, where the edge of the woods touched the base of the hills, as if the landscape itself were listening. A question hung between them now, unspoken but powerful. Why now? Why this life? Later that night, they spread out old books and maps on the wooden floor of Daniel's cottage. Newspaper clippings, town records, anything they could find. One article mentioned a legend older than the town itself, passed down orally before it was ever carved into stone. It spoke of two souls bound by love so strong that even death couldn't sever it. But it also spoke of consequences. Loop. A curse disguised as devotion. As Ilara read it aloud, her voice cracked. They were warned not to make the vow. But they did. And they were punished to repeat life after life until they chose love without control. Daniel ran his hands through his hair, heart pounding. So, this isn't a gift. It's a trap. The room fell silent again. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. And in that silence, they both understood. This wasn't just a romantic reunion. This was the middle of something much bigger. Cycle. A story with no ending until now. The cottage grew quieter. Laughter became rare. They no longer spoke of the legend openly. It was as though saying it aloud made it stronger, gave it power. Then the dreams changed. One night he dreamed of fire. In the dream, he stood atop a cliff, watching flames devour a village below. Men in armor shouted in a language he didn't understand, and through the smoke he saw her, Ilara, running barefoot and bloodied, trying to reach him. But just as she got close, a figure cloaked in black intercepted her, dragging her into the shadows. Daniel screamed, but no sound left his lips. He awoke with a jolt, the image burning behind his eyelids. Across the room, Ilara sat upright in bed, her face pale, her eyes distant. "You saw it too," she whispered. Daniel nodded, throat tight. We were there. Each night the dreams became clearer, more violent, more desperate. And then, during one particularly stormy evening, Ilara dreamt of the monument. But in this dream she stood alone. The stone was cracked, overgrown with vines, and Daniel's name, Daniel, was fading. She screamed his name over and over, as rain poured down her face, washing away the letters. She woke up crying. Daniel held her, but the fear between them was growing. The next day, Ilara stared into her reflection in the café window. Her eyes looked older, worn, as though she had lived many lives in just a few days. "I think we were punished," she said softly. "In that other life. I think we did something we weren't supposed to." Daniel, sitting across from her, leaned forward. "The vow." She nodded. "Maybe love like ours wasn't meant to bend time. Maybe when we swore to find each other in every life, we cursed ourselves." Daniel looked down at his hands. They were trembling. "Then why now? Why are we remembering everything now?" Ilara met his eyes. "Because this might be the last chance to end it." The air outside the café grew colder, though it was early spring. Leaves rustled despite the absence of wind. People passed by them, but Daniel felt like he was watching them through glass, as if he and Ilara no longer fully belonged to the world. He was in a chamber lit by firelight, the walls lined with ancient books. A voice spoke, not loud but commanding, deep and eternal. "You were warned. Love, when bound, becomes a chain." Then another voice joined it, softer, feminine, mournful. "Only when the choice is free will peace return." Daniel awoke, gasping, clutching the sheets. Outside the moon was red. He sat in the kitchen until sunrise, staring at the stone Ilara had brought from the monument days ago. It now had a hairline crack running through it, though neither of them had dropped it. When Ilara rose that morning, her eyes were hollow. "I heard the same voice," she said. "And it said something else." Daniel turned to her. "Only one can stay." The words hung between them like a blade suspended midair. Daniel felt his stomach twist. "What does that mean?" She looked down at her hands. "I think the curse is ending. But to break it, one of us has to stay in this life. The other fades." Silence. Then softly, "Fade." Lara nodded. "Not die. Not exactly. But disappear. Like we were never here." Daniel shook his head. "No. We just found each other. After lifetimes. This can't be the cost." She moved closer and took his hand. "Maybe this is the mercy. A way to break the loop. A way for one of us to live a full life, not haunted. Free." He pulled her into his arms. "I'd rather live one lifetime with you than 1,000 without." The sun broke through the gray clouds then, casting golden light into the room. It was warm, comforting but fleeting. And Daniel understood in his heart that time was running out. The curse wouldn't wait forever. Ilara and Daniel spent their time in quiet reflection, walking through the town, sitting together in the small garden behind the cottage, and often staring at the same patch of sky that had become their only constant. But it wasn't just the curse of the past that tormented them. The dreams were intensifying, becoming more vivid, more haunting. Daniel's once peaceful sleep was now interrupted by visions of war and separation, as though the universe itself was preparing him for something he couldn't yet understand. Ilara, too, was suffering. The nightmares took a toll on her spirit, leaving her exhausted, fragile. She no longer looked at the world with wonder but with a heavy sadness, as though she had seen it all before and knew that nothing could last. One evening, as the two of them sat on the porch, Daniel spoke the words that had been on his mind for days. "What if we just let go of it all?" he asked, his voice soft, almost unsure. "What if we don't fight the curse anymore? What if we accept that this life isn't meant for both of us?" An eternity was not measured in lifetimes. It was measured in moments. In the small, fleeting seconds of connection, of shared joy, and of unspoken understanding. They had found each other across time, across worlds, and now they had the chance to truly live, without fear, without the weight of destiny pressing down on them. "I'm not afraid anymore," Daniel said, his voice full of quiet wonder. "I thought love was something I had to fight for, something I had to hold on to. But now I realize that it was always just meant to flow, to be free." Ilara smiled softly, her heart swelling with love for him. "We've been fighting for so long, Daniel. We've fought against the world, against fate, against ourselves. But love never needed our fight. It only needed our trust." Together they turned back toward the village, walking side by side, no longer weighed down by the past, but filled with a quiet hope for the future. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time they embraced it without fear. They didn't know what the future held, nor did they need to. As they walked, Ilara glanced up at the sky. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden glow across the horizon. It was beautiful, serene, like the calm after the storm. The storms they had weathered, together and apart, had finally passed. The air was fresh, the world was calm, and for the first time they felt like they truly belonged. They reached the town square, where the people were bustling, going about their daily routines. The village seemed unchanged, yet for Daniel and Ilara, everything was different. They had discovered something profound in the quiet moments of their journey. They had learned that love wasn't about clinging to what they feared losing. It was about embracing the present, without expectations, without holding on to the past. As the sun dipped below the horizon, they paused by the fountain at the center of the square. Daniel turned to Ilara, his hand still holding hers, his eyes shining with the depth of everything they had been through. "I know that no matter what comes next, I will always love you," he said, his words filled with an honesty that made Ilara's heart ache with joy. "In every life, in every moment, I'll always find you." In that moment, as they stood in the fading light of the evening, there was a profound sense of peace between them. The world around them may have continued to spin, but for Daniel and Ilara, time no longer mattered. They had discovered a love so deep, so pure, that it transcended everything. Together they faced the future, knowing that no matter what came next, they would always choose each other. Their love was eternal,